one of the things you might tell them as they first come in is like, this is a really good opportunity to become part of the solution. We often hear, don't be a part of the problem, become part of the solution. And people think, well, how can I become part of the solution? What can I do that will help? What can I do that'll make this evolution of consciousness toward becoming love, more of a real thing? This is probably the primary lever to do that. So by joining this group and being active and participating in it is probably one of the strongest ways that you can be part of the solution.
It's been super helpful, Tom, and you've expressed it before, but it's the way you put it today has been very helpful, and it's being recorded about how important this is to you and to MBT.
Good initiative. And it's not only of vital interest to me and to MBT, but it's of interest to the rest of the world. What we're trying to do is get enough people to think positively instead of being negative. People contribute rather than just complain, and fuss and moan and do those kinds of things. The world needs us, and in as much as we can help create it, we should. I mean, there's lots of other people helping to create it too. We're not the only game, in town. We're not the only one that's saying things, but we probably have the most general, the most far-reaching, and the most comprehensive, at least of all the things that I've seen out there. The MBT tends to, all the rest of them can be kind of look like subsets. They fall under MBT's philosophy. They're a part of it. I mean, they may not even know MBT exists, but they're within that. So this is probably the most organic and comprehensive. There's no other group that's talking about consciousness that's also doing, quantum physics experiments. So we've got a really good organization, but in as much as we help these others grow too, that's good. We should. It's not just about us. It's about the whole big picture, growing, getting more and more people to stop being negative and start being positive. And that's really what it's about. And that's what it's going to take to really change this world in any meaningful way. You get this, when I say a critical mass of people, in nuclear physics, we have this thing called a critical mass, whereas you get enough radioactive elements together, you get a chain reaction. You don't get that chain reaction if you don't have enough, and that enough is defined as the critical mass. And that is if a radioactive element, got a bunch of uranium together, and uranium fires off neutrons. And those neutrons will hit other things that create more neutrons, which is other things that hit more neutrons. But they all fizzle out if you don't have enough. But you get to the thing called a critical mass, and now the whole thing just goes by itself, and it goes boom, because the atomic events going on are such that they make more of them faster than they decay. So we have the same thing. We've got this critical mass, and if we could get, I don't know how big it'll have to be, but even if we had 10% of the, 10% of the people thinking the way that we do, that may be enough to bring the other 90% along within a couple of decades. We don't need like 80% of the people. They'll come along. They're followers. They're not leaders. They're not the initiators. They're not the ones that make things happen. They're just the ones that get pulled in. As the ball gets rolling, they kind of get sucked into it and become part of it. So you don't need a lot. 10%, 5%, 20%, I don't know. Somewhere we'll hit a critical mass, and when we do, it'll be self-energizing. It'll just grow. It'll just roll. And there won't be anything even that you could do to stop it. It just, it's like something going viral. It's the same thing. For something to go viral, if you just get a certain critical mass of people to send it forward, eventually it gets to the place that it just goes everywhere almost instantly. It explodes. And that's what we'd like to do. And it's not just MBT, as I say. I don't want to all get caught up in MBT is it, and nobody else has a clue. So there's a lot of other people have good clues. They're part of the solution too, and all of us together need to create a critical mass of people who consider our ideas to be worth considering. And I think that's about all we need. If we get to that, in a couple of decades, we could have more consciousness evolution in a couple of decades than we've had in the last 200,000 years. We could really start to, get some speed behind it, move quickly. So that's what it's really all about. So if you know people who would like to be part of the solution, if there's a solution here, that's good, but they need to be part of the solution somewhere. Not necessarily here, but so we ought to approach it like that. It's not just about us. It's not that we're proselytizing members, to join our organization as opposed to all other organizations. We really need to have the bigger picture that we're part of something called human consciousness evolution, and it's going to take all of us in many, many different ways, all pulling together in similar directions, if not the same direction, in order to get us there. And I believe that MBT is probably the most general of those because it kind of goes deeper. It's got the science of consciousness, a good model of consciousness, and the science for the subjective world as long as the objective world. It has physics. There's a lot of stuff in it, which makes it broad, but it's not the only thing that's doing good and getting us to where we need to go. So we really want to be in favor of all of these things, not just ourselves. So that's the kind of the mindset. Now, I don't know how to portray all that, how to get people to see that, but that's kind of the solution we need is how do we get people to join us, and how do we get the people out there to see that this is the solution? There isn't any other solution than this. This is the only solution. Not MBT, I mean, but the idea that, to be more cooperative and more caring. That is the only solution. We have to evolve our quality as a species. And until we do, we'll just keep control, power, force, and be creating a nasty environment to live in. So we have to change, and the change has to be one person at a time. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're going out one-on-one, one person at a time, just doing things to change the world. And although that may sound grandiose, like one person going out to change the world, that's how it has to work. But then we'll have a whole lot of one persons going out, to change the world, and eventually we'll get that critical mass, and at that point, it'll all go all by itself. Because the people who don't get it yet will look at the people who do get it and see that they're happy, that they're successful. Whether they're rich or poor isn't the point. They're successful as human beings, and that will be enough to make other people want to be like them. So that's the big picture. That's kind of the biggest picture. And we're right at the beginning of it. We're the early ones who kind of see where it needs to go, and now we just have to figure out how to help get it there. That's what being part of the solution means. So I really appreciate your group, Michael, and all the rest of you, and Olaf and TD and Carissa, Priscilla, Nathan. I appreciate all of you for, being interested enough just to come and make time to sit with me and talk about this and how we go forward. It's really important, and it does make a difference, because what you do is going to help, a lot of other people who are going to help a lot of other people. So it doesn't take a whole lot to move the world, but it just builds slowly. And you got to start someplace. So here we are. This is at the beginning, And I think this is the way that we'll succeed. Any other way of trying to get out of the margins into the mainstream probably isn't going to work. This is, we're in the 21st century, and what works is social media. That's the route you got to take. You got to get onto the internet. Anything else is going to stay in the margins. So that's where we're headed. So I just want to thank all of you for coming and being a part of it and willing to share your time and your thoughts and your energy. Thank you so much.